Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood. Today, we're going to be learning all about Franz Liszt, the composer and pianist who was one of the biggest musical stars of the 19th century. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. Legend has it that Liszt had giant hands, allowing him to stretch a massive span of 12 keys on the keyboard. They say he could stretch to make chords that were physically impossible for just about anyone else. He could supposedly press down the C key in his thumb and strike a G in the next octave with his pinky finger. What do you think? Were giant hands the key to his success on the piano? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is virtuoso. That's virtuoso. A virtuoso is an individual who has outstanding technical ability in a particular art or field, very commonly in music. During his lifetime, Franz Liszt defined this term for the piano, executing passages of music at speeds and with complexities that previous generations considered to be just physically impossible. The word virtuoso originates from the Italian language in the early 16th century, where it meant a person of learning, skill, or intellectual worth. Its roots go back further, though, to the Latin word virtus, which translates to virtue, excellence, or manliness, and the root of that was vir, which meant man. In the late 17th and 18th centuries, the English language adopted virtuoso to describe anyone with a special interest in the arts and sciences, including collectors and antiquarians. But in the 19th century, the definition narrowed to focus specifically on performers with extraordinary technical mastery. Liszt embodied this modern definition so much so that his name became synonymous with musical virtuosity. Music historians often categorize Liszt along with the violinist Niccolo Paganini as foundational virtuosos who established the blueprint for modern instrumental performance. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about Franz Liszt. Number 1. Franz Liszt gave us the format for the modern piano recital. Before the 1830s, musicians just didn't perform solo concerts. Standard concerts included a variety of performers, a symphony orchestra, a singer, instrumental soloists sharing a single program. In 1839, though, Liszt broke this tradition by giving a concert in Rome where he was the sole performer. He called these solo performances musical soliloquies, but soon adopted the term recital after performing in London in 1840. The concept reorganized live music, establishing a format that's still used by classical soloists today. Liszt also changed the physical orientation of the piano on the stage. Before Liszt, pianists tended to perform with their backs to the audience or facing the audience directly, which hid their hands behind the instrument. Liszt turned the piano sideways, parallel to the edge of the stage, allowing the audience to view his facial expressions and watch his hands strike the keys. He was also the first musician to routinely perform his entire program from memory rather than reading from sheet music. Number 2. Liszt's performances drove audiences wild in a phenomenon known as Lisztomania. During his tours across Europe between 1839 and 1847, Liszt's audiences exhibited levels of hysteria previously unseen in classical music. The German poet Heinrich Heine coined the term Lisztomania in 1844 to describe the intense behavior of Liszt's fans. Audience members routinely fainted during his concerts, screaming loudly and rushing the stage. Women fought over his discarded silk gloves and velvet handkerchiefs, often tearing the fabric into pieces to keep as souvenirs. This obsession extended to items Liszt used or touched in his daily life. Admirers collected the broken piano strings from instruments Liszt played and fashioned them into bracelets. Others carried glass vials to collect the coffee dregs from his cup. Some fans snatched his discarded cigar stumps from the street, encasing the tobacco in lockets. Medical professionals of the era debated the cause of the so-called Lisztomania, with some doctors categorizing it as a genuine medical pathology triggered by the acoustics of Liszt's rapid playing. Number 3. Liszt invented what he called the symphonic poem. In the mid-19th century, composers typically wrote symphonies in 4 distinct movements with pauses between each section. Liszt sought to combine the narrative structure of literature with orchestral music. In order to achieve this, he created a symphonic poem, a piece of orchestral music written in a single continuous movement. These compositions were meant to evoke the spirit of a non-musical source, like a poem, a novel, a painting, or a landscape. Liszt composed 13 symphonic poems between 1848 and 1882, drawing inspiration from the works of authors like Victor Hugo and William Shakespeare. His creation of this form provided composers with a new way of thinking about writing program music, which is music designed to tell a specific story. Other major composers, including Strauss and Tchaikovsky, later adopted the symphonic poem format to create some of their most famous works. And modern composers still use this continuous orchestral format to support a visual narrative, as the symphonic poem heavily influenced the development of 20th century film scores. Number 4. Franz Liszt earned a fortune performing, but he donated a lot of his performance fees to charities and gave free piano lessons. By the 1840s, Liszt was the highest paid musician in the world, commanding unprecedented fees for his appearances. But he maintained a philanthropic philosophy and gave away nearly all his concert earnings after 1857. He funded the construction of hospitals, schools, and orphanages throughout Europe. When the city of Pest, Hungary, suffered a devastating flood in 1838, Liszt organized and performed a series of charity concerts in Vienna. He raised the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars for the relief effort. Liszt also utilized his wealth and influence to support other artists and musicians. He contributed heavily to the fund required to build the Beethoven Monument in Bonn, Germany, when the project was facing financial collapse. Liszt also supported struggling composers, including Wagner. And he provided free piano lessons to hundreds of promising students during his later years. He refused to charge fees for his classes, saying that talent should be nurtured regardless of a student's financial status. And our 5th and final fun fact for today. Lisztomania got so wild, Franz Liszt couldn't keep up with the requests for locks of his hair, so he actually bought a dog so he could send out little bits of its fur to his fans. As Lisztomania swept across Europe, the pianist received an unmanageable volume of letters requesting a lock of his shoulder-length hair. To satisfy his admirers, but prevent himself from going bald from the constant snipping, Liszt got a large dog with a coat that matched the color and texture of his own hair. He clipped the dog's fur, placed the snippets in envelopes, and mailed them to his unsuspecting fans. And here's a little bonus fact on the topic of celebrities sending locks that aren't actual hair. Yoko Ono once offered the surrealist artist Salvador Dali $10,000 for a hair from his iconic mustache. He took the money, but he said he was suspicious of her motivations, thinking she might be a witch, so instead of a hair, he sent her a blade of dried grass. Now for some news you can use. Franz Liszt memorized entire concert programs, but even if you aren't a musician, you may want to improve your memorization skills. Whether you're learning a set list for a concert, studying for a big test, or preparing a presentation, a great technique is structural chunking. Instead of trying to memorize the speech, piece of music, or list of facts by reading it straight from start to finish repeatedly, break the material down into smaller, logical sections or chunks. Our short-term memory can typically hold about 7 pieces of information at once. By grouping data together based on patterns, like grouping musical notes by chords or organizing a speech into key arguments, you reduce the total number of items your brain needs to store. Start by analyzing the material to find the underlying framework before you begin memorizing. In a piece of text, you might outline the main headers. In a formula, identify the repeating variables. Now, once you've broken it down and gotten the structure of the information, memorize the last chunk first, then the second to the last, and work your way backward to the beginning. This backward chaining technique ensures that as you perform or recite the material, you're always moving toward information you know more securely, which prevents memory lapses. Finally, the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked, is it true that Franz Liszt had a sort of genetic advantage with freakishly giant hands, allowing him to stretch across 12 keys on the piano? Well, this one's a popular myth. While the rumor has stuck around for a long time, so have plaster casts of Liszt's hands. Scientists have looked at plaster casts taken during Liszt's lifetime and found that his hands were surprisingly average in size. He could comfortably stretch a tenth, which is great, but pretty standard for professional concert pianists. So how did he play those seemingly impossible, widely spaced chords? The secret was his speed. Instead of striking massive chords all at once, he rolled them at lightning speed. It was so fast, audiences swore he was hitting all the keys simultaneously. Although, to be fair, there was one genuine physical advantage. The webbing between his fingers was notably low, giving him a much greater than average degree of lateral flexibility and independent finger movement. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about Franz Liszt with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.